The world is full of surprises, some more pleasant than others. Some are found in some of the most interesting places, while others are in equally weird places. In this video we explore some of the strangest things found in the middle of nowhere, from would-be cursed statues to a place called Migingo Island. Hikers find a cursed statue. Are you into hiking? In most cases, when you go out in the thickest forest with a group of people and a guide, it's seemingly safe and secure. Yet you cannot be so sure of what lies out in the wilderness. Also, you don't go about picking up things in the wild. Who knows, they could be cursed. In 2018, two hikers went to the Catskill Mountains, renowned for its famous hiking trails and peaks. They came by a small cave and discovered a small statue of a wooded figure. Strangely, it had nails in its eyes and a noose around its neck. From the get-go, one of the hikers could sense that the statue had some pretty bad vibes, and the other hiker decided to carry it home. At first, all was seemingly okay until the said hiker started to experience weird things in his home. The statue was moving from one spot to the next, magically. It was also emitting an awful smell at night. He would also hear banging noises and could not establish the source. The paranormal activities were too much, and in the end he moved to a friend's house for a few weeks until things settled down. Distraught, he posted the occurrences on an online site looking for advice. Many suggested that he throw away the statue or bury it. A paranormal expert decided to relieve him of the statue and named it the Crone of the Hiker's Hands. It was an exhibit at home along with his other collectibles. All the paranormal activities ended in the hiker's house. The paranormal expert started experiencing the weird activity. It was all manageable until people started touching the statue and getting seizures. Some compared this statue to some mystical ones created by the Congo people, which affirmed oaths and protected villages from witches and evil. It's believed that the statue was malicious to the hikers because they stole it from its original home. The mysterious rock sphere in Bosnia. A team of archaeologists was dumbfounded when they found big spherical stones in a forest in Bosnia. No one had a clue how they'd landed there and their origin. The heaviest one weighed 30 tons and was about 5 feet in diameter. No conclusive analysis has been done to figure out what the stones are made of. The reddish colour indicates that there are some iron components. The archaeologists speculated that the spherical stones were the work of a forgotten civilization more than 1500 years ago. If they were able to prove this, it would mean that the Bosnian spheres are one of the oldest stone spheres to have been created by human beings. To date, the origins are not yet clear. This discovery has sparked conspiracy. Some people argue that these spheres were created by extraterrestrial creatures. Medieval dolphin grave. Archaeologists were both marvelled and shocked when they discovered sea mammals on the islands of Chapelle d'Omhoy off the west coast of a place called Guernsey. The archaeologists thought they had stumbled on a human grave, but later removed the remains only to identify them as sea mammals. First, they identified the sea mammal as small porpoises, but after further research they identified the remains to be those of multiple dolphins. A deeper study of the place indicated that there were traces of dolphins and porpoises in the waters during the Middle Ages. Who would take the trouble of burying sea creatures with such precision? After the excavation of the entire island, they only found dolphin remains and no humans or other mammals. Research also suggested that the area was home to Christian monks who buried dolphins as part of a ritual. Another way of thinking about it is the monks would have eaten these sea creatures and then buried the bony remains with salt for preservation. That said, there is still no solid truth about this grave. The most isolated church in the world. Finding shrines on top of mountains is something that happens quite a lot. The shrines are frequented by people of faith who are on a pilgrimage. There's however no shrine quite like the Kachki Pillar. Renowned for being the highest and most isolated in the world, it sits on a 130-foot limestone monolith, located 120 miles west of Georgia's capital, Tbilisi. In the early days it was used for pig fertility rites when Christianity arrived in the 4th century. Today most monks get to the top using a metal ladder in 20 minutes and pray daily. This place is in no way a tourist attraction and is exclusively for religious purposes, and women are not allowed to go up. In the 10th and 11th centuries monks lived there. Today things have changed and the monks live below the pillar and only climb up to pray. Farmer finds 20,000-year-old armadillo. Armadillos are small animals commonly known for their leathery shell and long sharp claws. These creatures are 2.5 feet long from their nose to the tips of their tails and weigh about 12 pounds. A little-known fact is that long ago armadillos were as large as cars. This farmer discovered big-size armadillo fossils 25 miles south of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he almost confused them for dinosaurs. Researchers analysed the 4 egg-shaped remains and quickly realised this was the upper shell of a glyptodont, which was an ancient armadillo. They were gigantic, heavily armoured mammals that ate plants. The giants roamed South America and later migrated to North America and went extinct many years ago. Their fossils are commonly found all over America, the largest one measuring 5 feet long. Archaeologists believe that their extinction was unprecedented, and our ancestors are to blame since they hunted them and used their shells for shelter. Imagine if these large creatures roamed the earth today. Mysterious lake in the Tunisian desert. The existence of this lake in the Tunisian desert was at first considered a mirage. A traveller found it by accident and thought he was hallucinating. Looking closer, he discovered it was real, and soon after, the news reached the local community. Gafsa Lake is better known as the miracle lake formed from nothingness in the desert south of Tunisia. The place is surrounded by scorching sun and sand at 40 degrees Celsius. The lake found an outlet in this unlikely place. The oasis was a gift to the local people, and they did not question why or how. In its initial days, the waters in the lake were clear blue, but later became murky and green. Later, a few people feared that the lake could be radioactive and harboured diseases with carcinogenic elements. Still, people flocked to the lake. The waters have never cleared back to blue and remain green with algae. There is no explanation of how the lake came to be. A few experts associate it with a rupture of a water table. There are no authorities stationed there. Would you risk it all and go out on the Miracle Lake adventure? Last house on Holland Island. This lone Victorian home in the middle of nowhere looks very picturesque. It was built in 1888 on Holland Island in the Chesapeake Bay and was named after its owner David Holland, a British colonialist. No one lived on the island until the 1850s, when a vibrant fishing community made it home. In the early 20th century, Holland Island was popular, and no one imagined that one day their homes would be washed away by the rising seawater. In 1914, people started noticing that the water was slowly increasing and the shoreline was disappearing. Many moved back to the mainland, and some stayed for a while, and as the levels increased, they left. In 1955, the island was bought by Mr. Stephen White, who thought he could save the place. He tried about everything to prevent the water level from rising. By 2010, this Victorian home crumbled due to erosion. There's nothing left of Holland Island. It, however, has a place in history. Strange metal monoliths. A few serial travellers have reported seeing these weird 12-foot-tall silver monoliths in the middle of nowhere. They appear without warning and in the same fashion disappear. No one knows who created the monoliths and placed them in these locations. Some were found in Utah, Romania, California and Mexico. Their Houdini-like appearance and disappearance make people freak out. Many speculate that they could be extraterrestrial structures sent to Earth to guide aliens. That sounds preposterous. Despite their mystery, experts insist that they are merely pieces of art. Giant hand in the Atacama Desert. Extending from southern Peru to northern Chile, this desert is one of the driest non-polar deserts on the entire planet, only receiving 1 millimeter of rain per year. Many people do not visit the Atacama Desert due to these conditions. Smack in the middle of the desert, you'll find this giant hand statue 36 feet tall. This is a fascinating find for brave travellers. The sculpture is locally known as Mani del Desertio, and the artist behind it is Chilean Mario Irarrázaval, who created it in the 1980s. The artist is reputable for creating hand sculptures with fingers lifted. This became a famous landmark for tourists who visited and made their drawings of the sculpture on the sculpture. Sculpture is cleaned every year. Church revived by ghosts. For 5 decades, the St. George's Church was abandoned in the village of Lokova in the Czech Republic. The church was built in the 14th century and was in operation until 1968 during a funeral whereby the roof collapsed. This was considered a bad omen, and no one ever set foot in the church since. The congregants held services outside the church. Eventually, years of non-use saw the church crumble. The painting and artifacts were also stolen by communists. It was only in 2014 that an art student at the University of West Bohemia discovered the forgotten little church and thought it a perfect idea for his art installation. He got approval from the person in charge and started work on his art project. He created ghostly figures that resembled people praying and lined them up on the church pews. The ghostly art installation caught the attention of art lovers across the world. Prada store. In 1913, Mario Prada from Milan came up with his luxury brand. Today it has won the hearts of many fashionistas. From handbags and shoes to high-fashion clothing, you name it and you'll get it in Prada. So it beats sense to find a Prada store in the middle of a deserted highway in Texas. The store is specifically called the Prada Martha. It looks like a real store, but when you step in, you realize it's a replica of a Prada store and does not function. It was supposed to be an art installation, but the artist disappeared. Such installations have been set up in isolated locations back in the 60s and 70s, and most go unnoticed. This is not the case for Prada Martha. Thanks to social media, many people have flocked to the place and were fascinated. The installation has made a debut in different shows for its creative flair. Atari video game burial. Ever wondered where all the unsold video game cartridges are taken? Especially the games that sucked so badly they never made it to the hands of any owners? On 22nd of September 1983, a small portion of game cartridges was disposed of in a landfill in Alamogordo, New Mexico. These were 13 truckloads of game cartridges. The intention was to cover everything in concrete. That same night, looters excavated the video game copies. These were Atari video games, and they did so poorly that the game creators had to bury them to hide their shame. Humanity's last hope. Chances you will ever visit the Svalbard Global Seed Vault are close to naught. The main reason is that it was built in the middle of nowhere on a mountain, a secluded island in Svalbard archipelago between Norway and the North Pole. Something like Noah's Ark. Instead of animals, it stores all manner of seeds from different parts of the world. At its full capacity, it can hold 4.5 million seed samples. The current status quo is 1.5 million seed varieties. This preservation is sufficient since the temperature is permafrost. This seed bank ensures that we have a reserve of all the seeds in the world in the dire situation that diminishes our current farmlands. With the reserve, we can still have access to all manner of crop varieties and regrow them again. Abandoned village of dolls. We all hear of the isolated villages in Japan. This village in Shikoku, Japan, no longer has humans but is occupied by human-like dolls. The 350 dolls were created by someone who lived in the village and was lonely, and to dispel the feeling of being abandoned, created the dolls as life companions. At first glance, the dolls look humanized, living their little lives in homes and classrooms. Before moving to number 1 on this list, take a look at this picture. This drone spotted something out of the ordinary atop this mountain. There were 3 figures up there. These were 2 hikers and their dog who'd lost their trail and gotten lost at Colorado's Pike National Forest. Their brilliant idea to wait for someone to spot them in an open area yielded good results. The drone located the group not more than 3 hours later, rescued and led down the trail safely. Mikingo Islands. From a bird's eye view, you would not know that there are any inhabitants on the island of Mining. Looking closer, you are shocked at the population living in this small area. The island is located in Lake Victoria between Uganda and Kenya. Between the 2 countries, there's an ongoing dispute as to which country the island belongs to. The island is almost the size of a football pitch, but houses about 500 people. The houses are mere shacks, and residents live in poverty. What strange things have you experienced while traveling? If you've recorded them, even better. Share them with us in the comment section, and let's keep the conversation going. To get updates on new content, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to be notified each time we have a new video up for your viewing.